Welcome gents, welcome gentle ladies, and also welcome gentle children. Today is Friday. We are starting the weekend, and we are starting the weekend with something familiar has been happening recently, which is some more balance tuning. Now, unfortunately, following the trail of disappointment of the last couple of balance tuning videos we have had, generally speaking, these balance tuning changes are not that massive, but we could have some hope with the change to a particular spec that we will see now. That perhaps might change a lot, because as we said, this spec in particular was quite overtuned compared to the rest. So maybe Blizzard has identified this spec as being an outlier, and maybe they actually are going to fix it. So, starting this list of balance tuning with the main course of today, which is Protection Warrior. We literally just had, almost as a prophecy, a video about why is Protection Warrior the best tank at the moment, why is so strong, what makes Protection Warrior so strong. But throughout that video, we were also pointing out that very likely, very likely, Protection Warrior was going to get nerfed, because it was too far ahead compared to the other tanks. And, you know, almost as if I called it, in a couple of days, Blizzard comes out with the nerfs to Protection Warrior. I said the first thing that needed to be nerfed for Protection Warrior was Brutal Vitality. TLDR, this super strong talent, which transforms nearly a third of all of your damage into an absorb shield. It's way too strong, right? It needs to be changed. These are the changes that Blizzard thought were fitting to rein back in the power of Protection Warrior. So we have first a nerf to Thunderclap, which is a 10% damage nerf. Okay, it's a good start. Thunderclap was one of their main AoE damaging ability, plus if you nerf their damage, their Brutal Vitality talent becomes weaker, because they have less damage, which means they transform less of that damage into an absorb shield, so it's a decent start. Then we have another nerf. Shield Charge now is on the GCD. Shield Charge previously was off the global cooldown, so now instead you have to play this around your global cooldown, which is also, yeah, it's a nerf, but the ability itself has a 45-second cooldown. It's not that it's gonna hurt you too much to spend the global cooldown on Shield Charge. The next nerf is to Revenge, which is your other AoE ability after Thunderclap. Revenge's damage is nerfed by 5%. Okay, fine, up to this point the nerfs are middling. We have gotten a 10% nerf in damage to Thunderclap, a 5% nerf in damage to Revenge. Where is the big nerf? Where is the big change to Protection Warrior? Huh? Hello? Prot Warrior? Is that... That's it? Revenge? Shield Charge? Thunderclap? That's all for Prot Warrior for today. Well, this is not what I was talking about when I was mentioning the need to nerf Protection Warrior. These are very light slaps on the wrist for Prot Warrior. They're not really gonna change anything, and they are certainly going to keep Protection Warrior as one of the best tanks coming into Dragonflight. Yeah, you dodged this one. You dodged this round of nerfs, dear Prot Warrior mains, but I still wouldn't say the coast is clear before the release. That there is no way they're going to let Protection Warrior out in this state in Dragonflight. You can, sure, still be high on Hopium and believe that instead Blizzard is going to buff all the other tanks rather than nerfing Protection Warrior. I wouldn't bet on it one bit. As I said in the Prot Warrior video, even as a Prot Warrior main, you should hope to be nerfed. Because if you don't get nerfed on the beta, then the chances that they're gonna let you free on release, you're gonna be super OP, and so Blizzard will kneecap you at the release of the expansion and make you much weaker with a much bigger nerf, is likely. It has happened before to quite a few other specs, so I wouldn't want to run that risk as a Prot Warrior. And definitely, these nerfs are not enough to change basically anything of the power of Protection Warrior. Now, besides Prot, we have a few other changes to a few other specs. First of all, Mistweaver Monk. Again, Mistweaver Monk gets a series of aura modifier changes to their abilities. Remember that a few times some of these aura modifier changes don't actually make it into the build, but for now the proposed changes by Blizzard are buffing significantly the damage of your Rising Sun Kick, changing your aura modifier from -12 to +10, so it's a +22% damage increase to Rising Sun Kick, changing the damage of Blackout Kick into a nerf, a 20% damage nerf to Blackout Kick, a 44% damage buff to Tiger Palm. So basically, your single target damage as a Mistweaver gets buffed in Tiger Palm and Rising Sun Kick, and your AoE damage in Blackout Kick, which you can apply to multiple targets when you Tiger Palm, is nerfed. That seems to be the main change in terms of damage to Mistweaver Monk. However, it doesn't stop here. There is a small tweak to Awaken Phalanx, which is actually a buff again in single target. Previously, Awaken Phalanx made your Tiger Palm hit 2 different targets, whereas now it makes you hit the same target twice, which makes it better in single target fights, because if you were using this on a single target, there were no 2 targets to hit with your Tiger Palm. Instead, now you will simply hit a single target twice. So it's a tiny tweak for single target. What is bigger than this tweak, however, is the nerf to your healing. Again, pretty much all of your healing abilities, or your main healing abilities, from Enveloping Breath to Enveloping Mist, Essence Font, Refreshing Jadewind, Renewing Mist, Yulon's Whisper, all of them get nerfed in about 5% in power. Of course, it was the tax, the Mistweaver Monk tax of getting Enveloping Mist changed once again. I believe we are at this moment at the 7th Enveloping Mist change in the last month in terms of spell power. But this seems to be also warranted. If we have to go by the little set of numbers we have from the raid, Mistweaver Monk was one of the better performing healers in terms of HPS. So it had to be reined in a little bit. This is obviously not enough to make Mistweaver Monk bad by any means. So it's a small nerf in your overall healing, with also a change in giving you more single target damage at the expense of less AoE damage for Mistweaver Monk. We then have, after Mistweaver, a buff to a DPS spec. A DPS spec which has been quite, honestly, quite in the shadows, quite not nearly as hyped as you would have expected, because we are talking about Devastation Evoker. Devastation Evoker is the new hero class. It's the newly released class after half a decade of our last class being released, Legion, Demon Hunter, basically. Now we have got an Evoker, and it's really not exciting. I don't see many people being hyped about Devastation Evoker compared to when we have gotten Monks out, compared to when we have gotten Death Knights out, or even Demon Hunters out. Evoker seems to be the least exciting one out of these classes being released, and the damage was also a big part, because the rotation and the way Devastation plays is quite boring. It's quite simplistic, even more simple than the simplest version of Havoc Demon Hunter. And on top of that, the damage isn't even high at the moment. Devastation is not doing too well in terms of damage. So they are getting buffed by 5% to all of their abilities. Yes, this doesn't change how simple the spec is and how simple it plays, and also doesn't fix quite a few of their issues, in particular in AoE, where they still have some problems, given that their stronger finisher is still a single target ability, Disintegrate. They still have problems, but at the very least now their damage is going to be a little bit higher. After Evoker, we have one last change. This time is for Restoration Druid. This talent had been murdered in the past. It used to be 3-second extensions of Rejuvenation when Rejuvenation was about to heal a player at full HP. It would extend the duration of Rejuvenation by up to 9 seconds. This was great. It's great because your entire core as a Resto Druid is to carpet bomb the entire raid with Rejuvenation. And this was giving you 9 more seconds of duration if you happen to be healing targets at full HP. It was basically an overheal counter. It would extend the duration if you were going to be overhealing, right? It was very good. It was nerfed to a 2-second extension up to a maximum of 6 seconds, and then to a 1-second extension up to a maximum of 3. So now Blizzard thought apparently that this last nerf was a bit too much, so Nurturing Dormancy is getting reverted to the 2 seconds extensions of your Rejuvenation up to a maximum of 6. That is what they are sitting for right now for Restoration Druid. Restoration Druid, which also was and still is, together with Mistweaver, one of the better HPS throughput healers that we have been able to test in the beta so far. the Druid, the Mistweaver, Holy Paladin, Preservation Evoker as well, once players get the hang of the spec, seem to have been one of the better ones recently in the beta. So Restoration Druid might even still get hit by a few random nerfs as well, just like Mistweaver Monk did. But for the moment, what they got here is a buff to Nurturing Dormants, which is still a pretty good talent when it comes to the raid. Now, with this last set of changes, this was all for the balance tuning of today. Obviously, the main course of today was awaiting the set of nerfs to Protection Warrior, which arrived, and they were not nearly as bad as expected. In fact, I would categorize them, I would put them in the slap on the wrist section of nerfs, because it really isn't going to affect much when it comes to Protection Warrior. So, I guess strike one for Prot Warriors. They got past the first hurdle in awaiting the release in their current state. I'm still of the opinion you would want to be nerfed before the release, just in case Blizzard decides to nerf you after the release. That would be much harsher. After you have put time, after you have put effort, you have sunk some progression on the character, getting nerfed at the start of the expansion is going to feel much worse than if you are nerfed now. So I'm still positive, I'm still pro that solution by Blizzard, but for now that's not happening. For now you're still very, very strong as a tank, and one of the best, if not the best tank available for Dragonflight at the moment. So, with this being said, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your Friday. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of my Patreon supporters for the support, the contribution, and the help you're allowing me to have as I continue to produce WoW content. To everyone who is interested and enjoys the content, also, you can still, by the way, support in other ways, which don't include stealing your mom's wallet. These are liking and commenting down below on this video for the YouTube's algorithm gods, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Lastly, for more social interactions and general parasocial relationships, you can follow me on Twitter, as well as subscribing to my Patreon, which will also give you access to my Discord server right over at these two links. Now, with this said and done, it's time to leave. I have to go and shop for some groceries once again. Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, finally it's cold. Finally, I start feeling my hands being a little bit cold, to the point that I might even wear gloves inside. That's the good state I want to be in.